Hello everybody, it's Lee Simmons here with Event Resources. The show must go on. That's what we typically say. Well, the show's not going on. We've had a lot of cancellations due to the COVID-19 coronavirus. And today we have a panel to talk about what this means, the impact of the cancellations, and what can be done to still hold your event. But first I say, stay calm. Don't panic. We will get through this together. With that, let me introduce our panel today. On my far right, we have Billy Montgomery, project manager here at Event Resources. Ian Sherwood, owner of Tents Unlimited. On my left, Brendan Twitchell, operation manager at AV Solutions, and Michael Zaski, owner of Zasco Productions. So thank you for being here, and thank you for watching. First, I'd like to just get into it. First, I'll say everything is clean. We've spaced out, and we are in good shape to have this event. But we're obviously seeing a lot of events not happen and being canceled or postponed. Let's talk about some events that we're being told are being postponed or canceled. What events are we seeing, Ian?
You know, the current impact, I think a lot of people know about the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Hartford. That's, you know, one that comes to mind. Local festivals, all those things that are happening now in this, you know, short, couple week stretch are understandably canceled. But I think that, we'll move on and, positive things are coming.
Yeah. What other events, Billy, you see in our business here?
Well, at the moment, a lot of school events, because schools are large bodies of people. A lot of school events are being canceled, new student orientations, things of that nature. Bringing in any student that's going to be, like a lot of colleges, that's going to impact enrollment for next year. Yeah. And other school functions.
Great. What other stuff are you seeing, Brendan?
Large corporations. I mean, businesses are set up to do these large travel meetings around the country, around the globe, really, and all travel's kind of come to a halt now. So a lot of meetings that have already been planned for the next couple of weeks have had to go away.
Employee meetings, corporate meetings, things like that?
Yep.
Yeah. And what are you seeing, Mike?
We're seeing all sorts of events cancel for the end of March and most of April. More specifically, fundraising events for a lot of nonprofits. This is the time of year where nonprofits begin their fundraising cycle. We're also seeing some academic conferences cancel, as well as the usual corporate events that would have quarterly leadership meetings, things like that have unfortunately canceled.
Right. So now let's talk about those types of events that are being canceled. Why are these events important in general? Why are they being held? Why do we have these types of events that we're describing? Billy, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, so I mean, as I said, the new student orientation, they bring the students in so that they can see the campus, but they're bringing in hundreds of students at a time. So these events are canceling because now we can't have that many people at an event.
And for the schools, it's more of trying to draw enrollment for people to come to their schools.
Sure, sway the students' decisions to be at that university or that college.
What about like festivals? How does that, why do they have these events? How does that impact?
Absolutely. So a lot of the small festivals that we do along the year, it's their largest fundraising campaign of the season. That's where they, churches and small organizations have these, events to fund their operations. And without them, we'll see what happens. The St. Patrick's Day Parade nationwide, but also here in Hartford, it's, one of the largest business days of the year for downtown Hartford. That's where a lot of businesses, make a lot of money that day. So, the impact is feeling now, but, I think that we'll get these back. We got positive stuff.
Right. And what about the corporate meetings, Brendan? You deal with a lot of them. Why do they put on these corporate meetings for events? How are they important for these corporations and employees? I
mean, now you're seeing a lot of like summits now at a lot of convention center type places or different venues, and yearly they're doing 3 or 4 summits with like CTOs, chief technology officers, with their huge groups, and they have projects that happen throughout the year. And they might do these events 3-4 times a year. So missing one, is going to lag that whole process for them. As well as like CIOs, CEOs, all these people are doing projects through the year. They want to talk with people and update their employees, and meetings that are canceled are now, they're going to kind of have to backtrack. And
but the meetings really for employees in terms of ideas for the company, directions of the company, is other reasons why they're having these events.
Information, yeah, and the employees are showing up there to make that, that event is the stamp, for the employees to come and make that memory and really get that point across. The CEO is trying to get the point across. So, yeah.
And some of the events, Mike, that you mentioned, what is the purpose of those events? Why do they hold these events?
Yeah, so like Brendan mentioned, one event comes to mind that's a big fundraiser, a large fundraiser for a nonprofit. As I said, they kick off their fundraising season. This is a fundraiser and a friendraiser where they gather members of the business community, for example, show them what the organization does, whether by video or audio or presentations, and try to solicit some donations from their big benefactors. And without these events, these small organizations, nonprofits, can't do that fundraising, so it creates a challenge for them. On the sort of academic side, like on the corporate side, it's the dissemination of information too. Large conference that we usually do each year canceled. It's a group of 1,700 people gathered together to talk about business and academics, and without that, they can't get the latest information, the latest news, the latest techniques, the latest anything. So much of what we do is communication. If you can't gather people together to communicate, you can't deliver your message.
Yeah, well said. And then relating to those types of events, we see a lot of stuff with like more of achievements, celebrating awards, ceremonies, things like that nature. Billy, maybe you want to talk about some events that we do here, but what types of events why do they have those events? Why do they have the events for the celebrations, if you will?
So it's a recognition thing. These people, largely students, are putting in a lot of time into something, investing into something, and it's a public celebration of that, and to recognize the work that people have put in, and now those aren't happening.
Right. So that kind of leads me into the next thing. So what happens? We talked about why these events are happening, why we do them. If they're not happening, if we have these cancellations, what happens to the company, the organization, the public, et cetera? What happens when these events aren't happening? Ian, from your perspective.
Just take, for example, the festivals that we do, right? And I know I've touched a lot on that, but these festivals, being as large as they are and raising the amount of money they do, it will impact the communities that they serve, the employees that they currently have, staffing. Missing a lot of these festivals are fun. The community gets to go and they enjoy it. They go year after year. They remember those times. Taking that away for the whole season would really jeopardize the enjoyment of the year for families and the people part of those organizations for all.
Billy, some of the events that you mentioned, what happens when these schools you mentioned, what happens if they don't have these events?
It's hard to say definitively what's going to happen, but new student orientations that aren't happening, those students aren't going to be able to go see the campus, see the programs that are offered there, get a sense of, I think one of you mentioned the making of new friends. I know when I went to my new student orientation, I met my roommate for that year, and we had decided then that we were going to become roommates. Things like that, just the small connections that are small at first that really grow into something else. Those aren't going to happen.
Yeah, and from a lot of the corporate meetings that you handle, Brendan, from your perspective. So what happens? The employees aren't there. What's the result, I guess, if these events aren't happening?
I think we're in a little bit of uncharted territory. I've been hearing that term a lot lately, but it definitely feels that way. I think before all of this, we were in such a time of technology, and things are things are quickly changing. We're constantly getting new iPads and new phones and new computers and things, and I think we may see a little bit of suffering of technology changing, and maybe just because of information's not getting passed across as quick as it was. That I think could be a big thing.
And also related to, like I said, the employees of these corporations, again, that's what you deal with a lot, I know of. What happens? I mean, they're not getting the information, they're not getting the direction from the company. Anything you can talk to about how that impacts them?
I think you're going to lose some connectivity. There's something to be said about being face-to-face. I think seeing each other today, there's a different connection, I think, than being over a VTC, a visual thing online. Being in front of somebody there's a different impact, there's a different connection. It's why we go to concerts. It's why we go out and have fun with our families, because when we go to a concert, a memory is made. and that stays with us forever. And I think it transposes to CEOs and CTOs, big events, because they want those same kind of impactful memories to be made. So less of those memories being made is something of a negative aspect for sure.
And Mike, you talked about some nonprofits, right? That's obviously a big thing. So what happens to those nonprofits who aren't having the events?
Yeah, I think that when events can't be held, nonprofits aren't able to reach their end users to let them know that they're available to provide services, but they're also not able to reach their donors, the benefactors who fund their operations. And this is money that's going to be lost, by the way, because if these events are just canceled and not rescheduled or ported over to an alternate format, for example, online like we're doing here today, the ability to raise funds is gone. You're not going to get that back, and it's also going to impact businesses. We talked a little bit before we went on air here. All of our businesses are going to suffer tremendously because of this, and we're looking to say to our customers, hey, we're here. We can find alternative methods to deliver your message, raise your funds, communicate with your employees, and get life to go on in the right direction.
And the other thing too, not just the fundraising for the organizations, but the operational expenses. A lot of these nonprofits don't have a lot of capital, and they rely, I should say, on the fundraising to help, obviously, for the organization and the cause, but also operational expenses too, because
Exactly.
They not be able to run.
Exactly. One of our academic clients, they hold a large conference this time of year, and it's not only an event to promote the institution, but it's actually also a fundraiser for their alumni fund. So that's a big. They're not reaching out to alumni. They're not getting alumni to come back to campus and engage with students, engage in faculty, and the impact of doing that is you're losing these face-to-face connections that we're talking about. Yeah. And there are some alternatives, and I think we're going to get to that too.
Yeah, we'll dive into that. But one thing, Billy, just to come back at some of the things you're saying with the schools, not just the orientations, but if enrollment is down, right? Isn't that a factor of this too?
Yeah, definitely. And it's beyond that as well. It's a lot of extracurriculars. There's a lot of colleges that are going to only online classes, or we're right in the season for spring break. So some of them are kicking an extra weekend for spring break, hoping that makes a bigger impact on them just to finish out this year. But absolutely for next year is going to be greatly impacted by the lack of new student orientations or this distance that is being put.
But even extra classes that colleges might have to get cut just because of the funding or programs,
or faculty members, things of that nature. Yeah, for sure.
Or other town, like you were saying with the festival, other town events that they like to put on for the community. If there's no funding there because there's no events to raise money,
absolutely,
it'd be impacted, right?
We do so many events, Tents Unlimited, setting up the tents and everything. It's town to town. I think that all of them have either a small event or a large event that they do annually, and I just really see that impact trickling down of not having those events. I think there's ways to get around that. We're going to get into that shortly, but just calm. Don't go canceling them yet, and we're going to get into all that stuff and how we can move forward. So,
if I may, I just want to echo what Ian's saying. The other thing that happens when large conventions and events around metropolitan areas are canceled is the spin-off business that goes away. You've got restaurants, coffee shops. You put 5,000 people in downtown Hartford for a convention. They've all got to eat lunch somewhere. They've all got to buy their coffee somewhere. Same thing in Springfield, Boston, New York, whatever. Name your area. Whenever you bring people to a central location, and whether it's a corporate event, academic event, institutional, nonprofit, whatever the event is, when you bring a concentration of people to an area, that tourism, if you will, revenue drops. And hospitality and tourism, hotels, restaurants, tremendous impact. And those are our friends and neighbors.
And that's a good point too. That's a very good point. I just want to touch on before we get into the solutions is that the local bars, the local restaurants who rely on everything you just said, Mike, that if they don't have customers come in a month, they could be out of business.
Absolutely.
So I understand the concern. I'm not trying to downplay, obviously, I don't think any of us are trying to downplay the severity of the virus, but if the public is not going into these places for event reasons or just in general, I guess, you could just see your favorite pizza shop or coffee shop just no longer be there because they can't support it within a month. So it's a really serious thing. So let's talk about some positive. What are things that we can do in our industry and try to educate the event planners and other people having events? What can we do to still have the event? Because as we said, we're here today, we're having an event. What are some ways that we can still put on the event and just think creatively a little differently. And the one thing I want to leave this conversation, Billy, I'll start with you, is that if you had a 150-person event, one thing we can talk about is having smaller events, but multiple of them. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so 150 is a good round number. If you broke that into 50 people per event, you could do that 3 times a day. If your event would normally take 2 hours, okay, fine. Let's go 2 hours in the morning or early afternoon, an hour to break so that the crew can come through and clean, maybe swap linens, clean chairs, clean microphones and lecterns, things of that nature. Host the second event for your 2-hour block, give it another hour, clean everything out. Third event, yeah, somebody's going to have to say their speech 3 times, but you still get your point across to your company or your group or whomever you're trying to get that out to.
Yeah, well said. Mike, what about spacing of the room layout? Right, that's one thing that's a way.
Absolutely, yeah. We were looking at an event that was on the verge of getting canceled and thinking, wow, we have some extra space backstage. We can unused space. We'll move the set back a little bit, spread out tables, try to accommodate people's comfort level that way. And then obviously the use of technology, as we are doing right now. I think that's going to be one of the biggest things that we can do for people. And the other idea is to say to people, let's all just be a little bit reasonable about this. I really love the idea that Billy mentioned about breaking larger events into smaller sessions, because while there is really no full replacement for face-to-face communication, and the electronic communication as we're doing now is excellent. But if we can find a way to keep some of these events alive, it's going to be helpful for our end users, our customers, and their audiences. And spacing things out a little bit, the cleaning, the wiping things down, asking people just to use common sense. I was seeing something in the news yesterday, how to wash your hands, 20 seconds, blah, blah, blah. That's stuff we should be doing anyways, folks. I don't want to sound like the obvious, but we should be washing our hands and cleaning our surfaces regularly anyway. So maybe it's a good wake-up call too. At the same time, I digress a little bit.
And actually related to that. Oh, okay.
I have something that I'd actually like to add on to that. We're talking about this face-to-face, in-person interaction that we all need some human interaction, but I think the reality of the more importance of having people gathered at this event is the networking that happens between those people, right? It's not necessarily sitting and listening to somebody speak on a topic. That, yes, it is more impactful to be there in person, but I think a lot of the networking that happens at these events is going to be greatly impacted, especially with small businesses that are brought together.
Absolutely. I mean, we did some sound for an event up in Springfield last week, and it was a business community event. And I watched, I was working the event, and I watched people coming in. It's a big networking event, a lot of politicians and business leaders, and people were doing the arm bump and the just hello, and you could see people keeping a safe distance. And I didn't feel like any of the audience was terribly uncomfortable about being there. Now, granted, this was a week ago today, so a lot has changed since then. But in general, I think there was a sense of community, and people were able to bounce ideas off each other much the way we are doing today. And just to advise attendees, you can advise attendees just to be smart about how they're behaving.
One thing you touched on that, Brendan, maybe you can talk more about is the cleaning of equipment, right? That's something that, again, we all, I believe, clean our equipment, but maybe it can be done more thoroughly, more often. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that with the microphone?
Sure. I mean, typically we're using lavs in the event industry, but there's handhelds a lot too. Condensers in Dynamics are 2 different kinds of microphones. Condensers are the more fragile, high fidelity mics. Those are fragile to water, so we don't want to put water on those. Dynamics, a lot of our microphones that we're seeing can unscrew that windscreen there, and you can clean on the inside, wipe it all down. I've read this morning, Shure actually said, which is a large microphone manufacturer, holding the microphone upside down and with a dry toothbrush so the particulates fall down is a method. But again, as Michael said, we should all be washing our hands anyways, and being clean, and not just once every couple hours. Feel free to do it every half hour, Well,
one thing too, and it's funny because I have a thing of Lysol wipes right here, but if there's a presenter, if there's multiple people speaking, when they walk off stage, you could have some Lysol wipes right there, or sanitizer right there, that they could wipe their hands and get clean as they're walking off the stage. I mean, that's just
and it goes for the lectern as well. There's a lectern typically up, not all the time, but hands come up, so we could, in between presenters, wipe down lecterns and make sure that bottles of water that we're handing off are wiped down and that kind of thing.
But even and I'm going to laugh when I say this because I know, like, even we're talking about hand sanitizer, right? can you find any? But I mean, if you can find some, I mean, hand sanitizer stations, whether it's an outdoor event and it's hugging and, you know, positive things. I say hugging because, you know, weddings I know you do, but
Sure.
Any kind of event, you know, hand sanitizer stations, cleaning stations.
Absolutely. I mean, we're already looking into having hand sanitizer stations ready and, you know, offering that to our customers. Something I wanted to touch on in regards to spacing that you were talking is, you know, take a wedding ceremony. You know, we're used to putting rows of chairs every 3 feet and, you know, having the chairs pretty much abutted to each other. But if we have the room, let us set those chairs up a little more spread out. Give people enough room to feel comfortable and, you know, not feel on top of each other. And, you know, there's things we could be doing to make people feel comfortable with what's going on. The hand sanitizer, you know, the fist bumps, you know, all that stuff.
See, the new norm, right?
You know,
The elbows.
You know, let's not
See less
let's
dancing
not
at
be
weddings,
afraid
probably.
to be around each other. Let's overcome. Let's take the precautions that, you know, the media is telling us to do. And I think that, you know, we'll get to this, but, you know, in 2 weeks' time, you know, from what's happened in this past week, be optimistic. In 2 weeks, we'll have a much better idea of what's going on in the world and how to handle moving forward. So,
That's true. It seems like every day there's new information. And that's all we're trying to do today, is just to provide some more information, give you some insight on your events. Mike, maybe talk a little more in depth about the live streaming stuff. We're doing that here today. But talk about maybe the options of how people could utilize it for their event.
Sure, absolutely. So we got an inquiry from one of our college commencement clients who said that they're contemplating a way to still make a great experience for their graduates. You know, you both parents and students, you put all this time, money, and effort into completing your college education at whatever level, and that, you know, commencement day is a very, very special day for you, and you want your moment in the spotlight. You want to walk across the stage and you want to show the world that you did it, whether it's a master's degree, bachelor's degree, whatever. And so this idea they had was contain the college community and keep it to a students-only event. So these are people who are already live together and study together every day, and conclude the year by doing a students-only event, but beef up, if you will, or enhance the live stream, the video production, to make it a better experience for those remotely. So they would not allow parents or friends or family to attend. It would just be a broadcast like we're doing here, but put more effort. So we would be able to take existing budgets perhaps, but port some of that over to a more enhanced live stream.
And one thing I saw on BizBash, it's a great website. One article I read that I thought was very interesting related to the live streaming is companies could send their the people who are watching the live stream could send them swag bags. You could send them a cleaning thing that had the sanitizer and the wipes or whatever. But I also saw one that was interesting. You could send them, if they're doing like teleconferencing, a snack pack.
yeah.
I thought that was really creative.
Branded with your logo or you know,
Yeah.
whatever, similar to what you'd have on the table at the conference center.
Well,
you know,
exactly.
with
That's what
pens
they
or
were
pads
saying.
Or, you know, whatever.
Instead of having, you could send them a bag, has the notepad, the pen, the snacks, so you could enjoy your live stream as if you were in the room. I thought that was a really creative article that BizBash said. I think the other thing...
You know, Lee, I'm sorry,
No,
on a technical level, I wanted to also say that there's so many ways that we can do a remote broadcast or remote webcast that isn't even just a one way like we're having right now. We can bring in people remotely from other countries, other locations. If you're a manufacturer or even an academic organization, you want to have people at 3 campuses or 10 campuses, we can bring those together electronically, whether it's by satellite or internet. And it doesn't have to be just one box on the screen like you're looking at right now. If you have a lot of content to deliver, we can do a camera in one corner and the PowerPoint or keynote in another corner. There's so much that technology will enable us to do to make people feel that they're closer together. And we can do that very, very cost effectively and very easily from a technology standpoint. It's stuff we're prepared to do already.
Right. Well, I think, yeah, and that's a key point too. And one thing, obviously none of us are caterers, but one caterer mentioned this to me and I thought it was very interesting, at least just to say to the public, that they said, you know, a lot of people when they were handing out pass hors d'oeuvres at an event and people are touching the plate.
Right.
Well, they said, this caterer said, well, we're eliminating that. You can't go over and grab the food. We'll pass it to you. Our staff will have gloves and they'll pass it to you. It's just one less touching point. Right. And I thought I gave the caterer credit because I thought that was a creative way to, you know, again, have a solution to the challenge, right?
Absolutely.
And I think communication is key too, like we're trying to do today. I think if anyone wants to talk about how important communicating, not just like us to our clients, our planners and event planners, but how did they communicate, the importance of them communicating to the people who are attending the event? Because they're scared, they're nervous. How important are the communication aspects?
That's huge. I mean, I think there's a lot of things being communicated in social media that is being blown out of proportion. And one thing that those people can do to their attendees of their events is communicate back, this is how we're going to proceed. Again, we're saying a lot. Let's see where it goes. There's still a lot of unknowns with this, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's them keeping an open line of communication with their people. Hey, we're going to slow down these events, but this isn't going away yet. That's going to be very important.
Yeah. And I think, Ian, you mentioned the point of getting the correct information, kind of like what Bill is saying.
Right. Right now, listen, I'm not the expert here. I don't think any of us in this panel are, but, stay home. Right now, this 2-week stretch, I think this is going to give us a lot of time to see where we're at, see where we're moving, like they say, flatten that curve and stay home, take the precautions, clean your hands, do those things those are the things that I'm trying to listen to, be optimistic. I'm sure we all got enough toilet paper, you know what I mean? But the truth of the matter is that I think that as a community, like you look at like swine flu 10 years ago, I think that was 2009, even how fast social media moves right now in 2020, you got to take everything with a grain of salt, and you have to step back, try to understand and evaluate it yourself. Don't listen to every single thing that everyone has to say. I know there's a lot of information out there, but I think this 2-week stretch that the schools, staff, employment are trying to take in the state is going to be, at the end of that, we'll have a much better picture of where we're at, how to move forward, and just give across the board our businesses, the educational systems, all that stuff, give them that 2 weeks, and then we'll see where the dust is settled after that.
Yeah, and kind of to that point, Mike, maybe if you want to mention that, maybe not jumping to conclusions, right? I mean, right. I understand things have to be canceled now, but do they have to be canceled so far out? Maybe waiting, right?
Yeah, and I think we experienced one cancellation for June, unfortunately, already, and what it was a snowball effect. Their sponsor started to pull out because one of their sponsors for this event was a travel-related company, a very large travel-related company. So once that title sponsor goes away, then all the sponsors beneath them fall, and then the event no longer has funding. And our attitude was, geez, maybe they could just hold off, and I think, what Ian said, I think next Friday or 2 Fridays from now, April 3rd, I think it is, that's a Friday, that's going to be a really pivotal day for a lot. We're going to be making a lot of business decisions, a lot of logistics decisions, and we're going to know a lot more. And my goal in my company anyways, and I think we all share this, is we're really trying to hang on till April 3rd and say to everyone, be positive, move forward, keep doing what we're doing, plan like May is going to happen. We're going to lose April, but May is going to happen. And I talked to one of my commencement clients, and they said, as of right now, XYZ College is canceling all events till May 1st. Everything after May 1st presumably is happening. And let's not alarm people. Let's not say, oh my God, April, May is going to go away, commencement's canceled, this event's canceled. Let's take it in some smaller chunks and make it a little more manageable and tolerable. We've got, all of us as business owners, entrepreneurs, directors of operations, we've got mouths to feed, we've got rent to pay, and we've got clients to service. And the clients, at the end of all this, we've got to be prepared for events going forward. And that's the other thing. If people are yelling gloom and doom, and we all batten down the hatches and say, let's roll over, play dead, close the doors, turn the lights off, we're not going to be prepared to service our clients. And every one of us, were talking earlier before we went on the air, we want to be ready for the influx of work that presumably will happen in May or June or July.
Well, two interesting points you mentioned. One is, I think that's it. You got to take it by a case-by-case scenario. If you have to cancel your friend in April, that's fine, but you don't make the conclusion that you have to go, or assumption, to have to go cancel all the events. You have time to wait. And I understand there's sometimes financial obligations if you wait. I get it, but I think it's easier said than done. If you can wait, to at least have hope that it might still work out. And Brendan, you mentioned something off camera that I thought it led right into what Mike was saying about being ready, being like, but we're used to that, right? We're used to these pressure situations.
Yeah, I mean, as techs and in the event industry, we're kind of already tuned to deal with high pressure situations. It's like what we're good at, kind of. We're given budgets and we're giving time frames to execute things. I have all the positivity in the world for United States medical And I think that they're going to catch this. They're going to find it. I think that the 2-week time frame is a time that's palatable for people. I think if you were to say 2 months, 3 months, people start thinking down the road. It's like there's no way to wrap my head around what 90 days feels like or looks like. It's unprecedented. So it's funny. After we talked about that, Ian had said that time, I was like, wow, okay, maybe in 2 weeks I can now wrap my head around what this is going to lead into. But I'll get back to us being techs. We're ready for this. So when events are ready to go on again and mass gatherings are ready to happen again, we're just charged, ready to just keep knocking them out of the park. So
Great.
Yeah, we're all chomping at the bit for that one.
All right. Well, thank you guys for this discussion. I think it was helpful for us to kind of congregate and talk about it. And thank everybody for tuning in. We hope this information was helpful to you. Listen, we're all here, all of our businesses. We're all community partners and doing what we can as our companies to help the local community, help the local events happen, because we really believe in that. We believe that these events are good things that are happening in the community, good things to happen for local companies that are raising a lot of money, and we understand the severity of this challenge. But we ask that just consider alternative ways to have your event, and some of the ideas that we suggested today that can still help your clients, still help the local community, help your organization raise money, because we can help creatively of these types of solutions. Listen, events are needed. As someone mentioned earlier, people need human interaction. We are social animals. And it's not about the information that is being presented to you. It's about that interaction, that networking, that connecting. It's important as human beings that we strive to have that. So I truly believe events will never go away because we need that as human beings. And I am positive that this will pass. We will all get through this, and we will all come out stronger than ever after. So we hope these ideas help, and we hope that relationships are built through these events and can continue to grow, because the reality is that's what makes us human, and that's what's going to help us continue to grow and have events continue here. So I always like to say, we don't grow when things are easy. We grow when things are hard and we face challenges. So let's face this challenge together. Hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.